Hi everybody, my name is Karen and I am the counselor here at Plexus. Welcome to the workshop on FAFSA FAQs. In this workshop, I will guide you through the definition of the FAFSA, of course, if you aren't familiar with that term, and what are the frequently asked questions. Now, this information that I will be providing you is accurate as of June 2020 and is provided to you by the studentaid.gov website. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's start off with a definition of what is the FAFSA. And to apply for the federal student aid, such as federal grants, work study, and loans, you need to complete the free application for federal student aid. Now, as you may know, this is the acronym for the FAFSA. Completing and submitting the FAFSA is free and easier than ever, and it gives you access to the largest source of financial aid to pay for college or career school. Now, you may also be... Oh my God. First, let's start off with what is the FAFSA. Now, FAFSA isn't... First, let's start off with what is the FAFSA. Now, FAFSA is an acronym for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. As you can see, it is highlighted in green. Now, to apply for federal student aid, such as federal grants, work study, and loans, you need to complete the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA. Completing and submitting the FAFSA is free and easier than ever, and it gives you access to the largest source of financial aid to pay for college or career school. Now, the FAFSA may be a requirement for a lot of schools, a lot of universities in the United States, in order for you to receive some financial aid from them. Completing and submitting the FAFSA is free and easier than ever, and it gives you access to the largest source of financial aid to pay for college or career school. Now, you may know that you have to send in this application of the FAFSA to these colleges and universities. You'll be able to list those colleges and universities on the application of your FAFSA, and they will determine the financial aid you will receive from that university. In addition, many states and colleges use your FAFSA information to determine eligibility for state and school aid, as I mentioned before. Some private financial aid providers may use your FAFSA information to determine whether you qualify for their aid. So the FAFSA might also send your information to private financial aid providers, and you might consider receiving financial aid from those providers as well. Let's move on to what are the eligibility requirements to apply for the FAFSA. The first and probably most important requirement you need is to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen of the United States. Now, by eligible non-citizen, I mean that maybe you are a permanent resident or maybe you have a green card for here in the United States. You must have a valid social security number. You must have a high school diploma or a GED, also known as a General Education Development Certificate. sorry, I had to do something with the puppy. Okay, that was a bit funny. Now let's move on to what are the eligibility requirements to apply for the FAFSA. Now let's move on to what are the eligibility requirements to apply for the FAFSA. The first and probably most important requirement is to be a citizen or eligible non-citizen of the United States. Now by eligible non-citizen, I mean that maybe you are a permanent resident or you have a green card. The next eligibility requirement is that you must have a valid the next requirement is that you must have a valid social security number, since that will be required as part of your FAFSA. You cannot continue the application without it. You must have a high school diploma or general education development certificate, also known as a GED, or you must have completed You must have a high school diploma or a general education development, also known as GED certificate, or have completed homeschooling. If you don't, you may still be eligible for federal student aid if you were enrolled in a college or career school prior to July 1st, 2012. And of course, you could check if you are eligible on the, oh my God, this PowerPoint is hard. Next, you must have a high school diploma or a GED, also known as Next, you must have a high school diploma or a general education development certificate, also known as GED, or have completed homeschooling. If you don't, you may still be eligible for federal student aid if you were enrolled in college or career school prior to July 1st. I need to speak slower. Next, you must have a high school diploma or a general education development certificate, also known as GED, or have completed homeschooling. If you don't, you may still be eligible for federal student aid if you were enrolled in college or career school prior to July 1st, 2012. Of course, you can visit the studentaid.gov website if you would like additional information about this requirement. I know it says that you must have a high school diploma, but that means that you must be enrolled in one of, never mind, just delete that part. And finally, on this page, you must be enrolled in an eligible program as a regular student seeking a degree or, oh my God, puppy problems. Okay. And finally, on this slide, you must be enrolled in an eligible program as a regular student seeking a degree or certificate. Now, by eligible program, I mean, and finally, on this slide, you must be enrolled in an eligible program as a regular student seeking a degree or a certificate. Now, by eligible program, I mean that it could be a college or a university or somewhere where it is required to have financial aid, or you must pay a specific amount to be enrolled at that university. Now, these are the eligibility requirements part 2. First, you must maintain satisfactory academic progress. That means you must meet the requirements necessary to be enrolled at your university of your choice. You must not owe a refund on a federal student grant or be in default on a federal student loan. You must not owe a refund on a federal student grant or be in default on a federal student loan. That means you must not have any problems, or you must not have any borrowed money from a loan from previous education. You must register or already be registered with a selective service system if you are a male and not currently on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces. So this is for people who have been in the Oh my God. You must register or already be registered with the Selective Service System if you are a male and not currently on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces. And finally, on this slide, you must not have a conviction for the possession of sale of illegal drugs for an offense that occurred while you were receiving federal student aid, such as grants, work study, or loans. If you have such a conviction, you must complete the student aid eligibility worksheet to determine if you're eligible for aid or partially eligible aid. Of course, this might depend by the type of conviction you have had with these types of financial aid. All right, now let's move on to the documents that you will need to fill out the FAFSA. Now, to complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, you will need these documents. Now, I'm not going to go over everything on this list just because. All right, now let's move on to the documents that you will need in order to fill out the FAFSA. And to complete the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA, you will need these documents. Now, I'm not going to go over everything on this list because I know it is a lot of information, but feel free to pause the video if you would like to look at this information more closely. First, let's look at the first point, which is your social security number. Now, of course, you will need your social security number because you won't be able to. First, let's start off with the first point, which is your social security number. Now, you will need your social security number to continue on the FAFSA. Next, let's go to the second point, which is your alien registration number if you are not a U.S. citizen. Now, of course, this goes for anybody who is a permanent resident or has a green card, etc. Let's move on to the fourth point, which is bank statements. Let's move on to the next point, which is federal income. And finally, on this slide, we're going to go over the third point, which is tax returns. You will need your federal income tax returns, which are W-2s and other records of money earned. You may be able to transfer your tax return information to your FAFSA using the IRS data retrieval tool. And finally, there's a fly, sorry. And finally, on this slide, let's talk about the tax returns. You will need tax returns for yourself and, of course, for your parents if you are a dependent student. You will need W-2s and other records of money earned. Note that you may be able to transfer your federal tax return information to your FAFSA using the IRS data retrieval tool. The IRS data retrieval tool is something that you can use in order to import your information from the taxes automatically. Now, this is only if you have done your taxes for the year specified on the FAFSA. All right, now this is information about what is a dependent student. I did mention that. All right, now in this slide, I will mention some information about being a dependent student. Now, I did mention that. All right, I did mention in the previous slide that if you are a dependent student, you must also include information about your parents. If you are a dependent student, then you also need most of the previous information for your parents. All right, now I did mention in the previous slide that if you are a dependent, oh my God. All right, in this slide, I did mention in the previous slide that if you are a dependent student, you will also need that same information for your parents. That is, you will also need your social security number or their social security number. You will need their, oh my God. All right, I did mention in the previous slide that if you are a dependent student, you will also need information from your parents as well. Now, you will need the previous information mentioned on the previous slide for your parents, such as the social, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm saying. All right, I did mention in the previous slide that if you are a dependent student, you will also need your parents' information as well. That is, you will need their social security number, you will need their tax returns, etc. If you don't know the definition of a dependent student, the definition is now, if you don't know the definition of a dependent student relies on the support of parents' financial assistance. Now, if you don't know the definition of a dependent student relies on the support of parents' financial assistance and is required to report parents' information on the FAFSA. That is, if you still oh my God, you still. Now, if you don't know the definition of a dependent student relies on the support of parents' financial assistance and is required to report parents' information on the FAFSA. That is, if you still rely on your parents' income in order to have. Now, if you don't know the definition of a dependent student relies on the support of parents' financial assistance and is required to report parents' information on the FAFSA. That is, if you still rely on your parents' income, you must report their information on the FAFSA as well. Now, what are the FAFSA deadlines? Now, what are the FAFSA deadlines? Now, some universities have their own FAFSA deadlines, but if you're applying for a freshman for fall admission, this is the most common answer. To be considered for federal student aid for the 2020-21. Now, what are the FAFSA deadlines? Now, this one depends on the university. Now, what are the FAFSA deadlines? Now, this one will most likely depend on the university and what are their FAFSA deadlines, but the most common answer for students who are applying for fall admission is that to be considered for federal student aid for the award year that you indicated on your application, you can complete the FAFSA form between October 1st Central Time and oh my God. Now, what are the FAFSA deadlines? Now, for this one, it most likely depends on the university you decided to attend or you're interested in attending during the academic. Oh my God, I forgot what I'm saying. Oh, this is so. Now, what are the FAFSA deadlines? Now, this one will most likely depend on the university, but the most common answer for students who are applying for fall admission is that to be considered for federal student aid for the award year, you can complete the FAFSA form between October 1st and June 30th on the year that you are interested in attending university. Any FAFSA corrections or updates must be submitted by 11:59 on September 11th. Now, however, many states and colleges do have earlier deadlines for applying for state and institutional financial aid, as I mentioned before. Now, some universities and colleges may have their own deadlines, so it is important to check with their financial aid office as well. Now, you can find your state's deadline as well, or you can check with your college or career school about their deadlines. Now, you can find your stats. Now you can find your state's deadline or you can check with your college or career school about their deadlines. Now, because of the variation of in-state and college deadlines, it is highly recommended that you fill out the FAFSA form as soon as you can after October 1st. The FAFSA does open on October 1st, so if you can complete it and start it on October 1st as soon as possible, that will be amazing. Now, this is to ensure that you don't miss on any available aid. Let's move on to what tax information should I put on the, oh my God. Let's move on to the tax information that you should put on your FAFSA. Now, tax information is one of the crucial parts about the FAFSA, and it's probably the one that takes the longest. The free application for the Now let's move on to what tax information should you put on your FAFSA. Now this is probably the section of the FAFSA that takes the most amount of time. The FAFSA form asks for income and tax information of 2 years before. For example, we're in the year 2020. If you apply for the FAFSA for this year, then you might have been asked for the taxes of 2018. This is advantageous for more students and their families because, first, it allows for immediate use of the IRS data retrieval tool to transfer financial information for eligible applicants. That is, that information from 2 years prior will already be available on the IRS data retrieval tool. It eliminates estimating income and tax information before taxes are filed. That is, it eliminates estimating income and tax information before taxes are filed. That is because once you submit the FAFSA, you don't have to wait to make corrections to the FAFSA oh my God. Next, it eliminates estimating income and tax information before taxes are filed. That is, you don't have to wait to make corrections to your FAFSA once your parents or once have you filled out your taxes. Oh my God. Deep breath. Next, it eliminates estimated income and tax information before taxes are filed. That is, you don't have to wait once your taxes are filed, and once you receive information about your taxes, you can just put the information from the taxes from 2 years prior. Next, it reduces the need to come back and update a FAFSA form after filing taxes. That is, maybe you don't. Next, it reduces the need to come back and update a FAFSA form after filing taxes. That is, you don't have to go back to the FAFSA after you have already submitted it. And finally, it enables submitting a FAFSA form as early as October of the year before attending school. That is, you don't have to wait until June in order to submit the FAFSA. You can submit the FAFSA as early as you want, starting October 1st. Hold on, let me see. How long is this? 3 more. Okay. Now here comes one of the big questions. I submitted my FAFSA. Now what? Now this is most common because a lot of students don't know what to do after the FAFSA. Now here is the answer. If you submitted your FAFSA online using FAFSA on the web, then the U.S. Department of Education will process your application within 3 to 5 days. However, if you submitted your FAFSA during paper, that is an option, your application will be processed within 7 to 10 days. Now it's important to check if your FAFSA has been processed to see if there is any problems with your FAFSA, if there is any difficulty, if you miss some information, etc. Now, once your application is processed, you will receive a copy of your student aid report. Now, this is another reason why you should check if your FAFSA has been processed. Now, your student aid report summarizes information you provided on your FAFSA. Now, you can see on your student aid report, now it is also known as the SAR, what information you put. Maybe you can even double check the information you put to see if it is correct or not. Your SAR will include your expected family contribution, that is also known as the EFC, and that EFC determines your eligibility for a federal Pell Grant. Now, this is a grant. If you don't know what a grant is, it is also free money as well as. Your SAR will include your expected family contribution, also known as your EFC. That EFC determines your eligibility for a federal Pell Grant. If you don't know what a grant is, it is also considered free money that you don't have to pay back. It can be compared to a scholarship. The college uses that EFC to assess your eligibility for other federal and non-federal student aid. Now, your EFC, of course, is your family contribution. That is the expected amount that your family is supposed to contribute towards your higher education. All right, now once your FAFSA has been processed by the federal student aid, your SCR is sent to the colleges that determine your. All right, now once your FAFSA has been processed by the Federal Student Aid, your SAR is sent to the colleges that you listed on your FAFSA. Now, as I mentioned, you can list the number of colleges you applied to on your FAFSA, and then your information will be sent to them so they can determine your financial aid. Each college will use that information on your SAR to determine eligibility for federal and non-federal student aid. The colleges you listed are responsible for creating your award package and dispersing your financial aid. Now, of course, this can take some time. Maybe they will send that to you. Each college will use that information on your SAR to determine eligibility for federal and non-federal student aid. The colleges you listed are responsible for creating your award package and dispersing your financial aid. Now for some, oh my God. It looks so lovely. I feel like I have more than 30 minutes on this one. Okay. Each college will use information on your SAR to determine eligibility for federal and non-federal student aid. The colleges you listed are responsible for creating your award package and dispersing your financial aid. Now, each college will provide you probably different information about financial aid because each college has different or determines the eligibility for financial aid differently. Now, oh my God. Each college will use information on your SAR to determine eligibility for federal and non-federal student aid. The colleges you listed are responsible for creating your award package and dispersing your financial aid. Now, each college has its own eligibility requirements when it comes to granting financial aid to the students. Now, not all of your financial aid packages are going to be the same. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm saying. Now, each college has their different eligibility requirements to granting financial aid to their students. That is, not all of your financial aid packages are going to look the same. And that is also one of the main, decisions that students have to consider when deciding on which college they should attend. Of course, you should contact your financial aid office if you have been experiencing any problems with your FAFSA for the college you plan to attend, and to find out if there are any additional requirements to receiving financial aid. Of course, you should contact your financial aid office of the college you are interested in attending in order to know if there are any additional requirements that you should submit in order to receive financial aid from that college. All right, now let's. All right, this is the last question. I made a mistake on the FAFSA. Can I go back and correct it? The answer for this one is now for the last question of this workshop, we have, I made a mistake on the FAFSA. Can I go back and correct it? The answer to this question is yes, you can go back and correct your FAFSA. To make corrections for your FAFSA, you should click the login button on the home page and log into the FAFSA on the web. Then you should click Make FAFSA Corrections. That is, you will log in the same way that you did when you were submitting or when you were completing the FAFSA. When correcting your FAFSA, you can add or remove colleges from your application, you can change your email or mailing address, and you can correct any field in your FAFSA other than your social security number. So of course, you can correct everything else except that social security number. All right, we have reached the end of this workshop. Thank you everybody for sticking around. Before I leave, I would like to let you all know to please download our Plexus app. If you download our app, you'll be able to receive instant notifications. We will also very much appreciate it if you leave us a rating and a review on the App Store or Google Play. We very much appreciate all the feedback y'all can give us. Chat with my counsel if you have any questions regarding this workshop, or if you'd like to reach out about your journey to higher education. We're always happy to help in answering all of those questions as well. And finally, check out our Plexus YouTube page for more college readiness workshops. Our Plexus YouTube page is called Plexus Social Media. Thank you everybody again, and I will see you all in the next workshop. Bye. Come on.